The Netherlands is a country that defies logic. More than a quarter of its land lies below sea level, its lowest point plunging nearly 7 meters beneath the waves. Nearly two-thirds of its territory sits at an elevation of just 1 meter or less. The country's most important cities, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, The Hague, and Leiden, all exist beneath the surface of the North Sea. By all geographical reasoning, the Netherlands should not exist. It should be a vast underwater graveyard, a modern-day Atlantis swallowed by the ocean, and yet it thrives. The world has been told a simple story. The Dutch built dikes, and the dikes kept the water out. But this explanation is dangerously simplistic, a convenient myth that obscures the far more complex, far more extraordinary truth. The Netherlands didn't just build walls against the sea. It built an entire civilization on a foundation of water, transforming a flooded, inhospitable delta into one of the most prosperous, densely populated, and technologically advanced nations on Earth. The Dutch didn't just survive the sea. They conquered it. But this conquest was not a single battle. It was a 1,000-year war, a relentless, unceasing struggle against the most powerful force on the planet. The story of how the Netherlands didn't sink into the sea is a story of innovation, desperation, collective action, and an unshakable national identity forged in the crucible of flood and disaster. It is a story of windmills and wooden shoes, but also of massive steel storm surge barriers that can hold back the entire North Sea. It is a story of a nation that learned to live with water, to embrace it, and to bend it to its will. And it is a story that holds urgent lessons for a world facing rising seas and a changing climate. To understand how the Netherlands defied the sea, we must first understand the land that the Dutch inherited. The Netherlands is a delta, a flat, low-lying region where the Rhine, Meuse, and Scheldt rivers empty into the North Sea. For millennia, this land was a shifting landscape of marshes, mudflats, and tidal estuaries, a place where the line between land and water was constantly changing. The earliest inhabitants of this region lived on man-made mounds called Terpen, raised platforms that provided refuge during floods. They were not conquerors of the sea. They were refugees from it. The first major shift came around the 10th century, when local communities began building primitive dikes to protect their farmland. These early dikes were simple earthen embankments, but they represented a revolutionary idea that the land could be tamed. By the 11th century, the Dutch were actively reclaiming land from the sea, a process that would continue for the next 1,000 years. But this early reclamation was a fragile and precarious enterprise. The dikes were weak, the drainage was poor, and the sea was relentless. The real turning point came in the 13th century with the invention of the windmill. The Dutch adapted this technology to pump water out of low-lying areas, creating a system of drainage that was far more efficient than anything that had come before. The windmills were used to pump water from the polders, the reclaimed land, into canals, which then carried the water to the sea. This was the beginning of the Dutch mastery of water management, but it was also the beginning of a dangerous dependency. The land that was reclaimed was often below sea level, meaning that it was perpetually at risk of flooding. The Dutch had created a system that required constant maintenance, constant vigilance, and constant innovation. For centuries, the Dutch managed this precarious balance, expanding their territory through careful reclamation, building more and more dikes, and refining their drainage systems. But the sea was patient, and it was waiting. The hidden power of the Dutch water management system lies not in any single invention, but in a comprehensive, multi-layered, and deeply integrated system of defense that has been built over more than 1,000 years. This system is not just about keeping water out. It is about managing water in all its forms, from the North Sea to the rivers, from the rain to the groundwater, and about creating a society that is resilient in the face of disaster. The first layer of this system is the dike network. The Netherlands has built more than 20,000 kilometers of dikes, levees, and barriers, a network that is so extensive and so well-maintained that it has become an integral part of the landscape. These dikes are not just earthen walls. They are sophisticated engineering structures designed to withstand the immense pressure of the sea and the rivers. They are built from sand, clay, and stone, and they are constantly monitored and reinforced. The second layer is the pumping system. The windmills of the past have been replaced by massive diesel and electric pumping stations, which are capable of moving enormous volumes of water. These pumps are essential for draining the polders, for preventing the groundwater from rising, and for keeping the land dry. The Dutch have also built an extensive network of canals and sluices, which are used to control the flow of water and prevent flooding. The third layer is the storm surge barriers. The most famous of these is the Delta Works, a massive system of dams, sluices, and storm surge barriers that was built after the devastating flood of 1953. The Delta Works is one of the largest and most sophisticated engineering projects in human history, a network of structures that can protect the Netherlands from the most extreme storms. The Eastern Scale Barrier, the largest structure in the Delta Works, is 9 kilometers long and consists of 65 pillars and 62 sluice gates. It is designed to close only during extreme storm surges, protecting the interior of the country while allowing the tides to flow freely under normal conditions. The fourth layer is the governance system. The Dutch have a unique system of water management that is based on local cooperation and democratic governance. The water boards, known as waterschappen, are among the oldest democratic institutions in the country, and they are responsible for managing the water levels in their respective regions. This system ensures that water management is a local priority, and that the people who are most affected by flooding have a direct say in how the water is managed. This is not just about infrastructure. It is about a culture of collective responsibility. The impact of the Dutch water management system is felt far beyond the borders of the Netherlands. The country has become a global leader in water management, exporting its expertise to nations around the world that are facing similar challenges. The Dutch have helped to build flood defenses in New Orleans, to protect the coast of Vietnam, and to manage the water resources of Bangladesh. The Dutch model is a template for how nations can adapt to a changing climate. The first ripple is the development of new technologies. The Dutch are at the forefront of innovation in water management, developing new techniques for flood prediction, coastal defense, and sustainable water use. They're using 3D digital twins to model flood scenarios, and they're experimenting with living dikes that are designed to grow with sea level rise. They are also exploring floating communities, a radical adaptation to a future where the land may no longer be habitable. The second ripple is a shift in philosophy. For centuries, the Dutch fought a war against the sea, trying to control and subdue it. But in recent years, there has been a profound shift in this philosophy. The Dutch are now embracing the concept of living with water, of learning to adapt to the water rather than trying to conquer it. This is a fundamental change in mindset, a recognition that the sea cannot be defeated, but must be accommodated. The Dutch are creating space for water, building floating neighborhoods, and designing landscapes that can absorb floodwaters rather than simply blocking them. The third ripple is a global race against time. The Netherlands is facing the same threat as the rest of the world: rising sea levels driven by climate change. The Delta program has calculated that sea levels could rise by 1 to 2 meters by the year 2100. This is a threat that challenges the very foundations of the Dutch water management system. The dikes, the pumps, and the barriers that have protected the Netherlands for centuries are now facing a threat that they were not designed to withstand. The Dutch are racing to upgrade their defenses, to strengthen their dikes, and to develop new strategies for a future that is increasingly uncertain. The global ripple is spreading and the world is watching. The Netherlands is a test case, a laboratory for the future of coastal nations everywhere. The Dutch water management system is a remarkable achievement, but it is not invincible. The country is facing a set of challenges that are unprecedented in its history, challenges that threaten to undermine the very foundations of its existence. The first challenge is the accelerating pace of sea level rise. The rate of sea level rise is increasing, and the models that the Dutch have relied on for decades are becoming less reliable. The Delta program has warned that the country may need to significantly upgrade its defenses in the coming decades, adding more pumping capacity and raising the height of its dikes. The second challenge is the subsidence of the land. The polders of the Dutch have reclaimed are sinking as the peat soil compresses and the groundwater is pumped out. This subsidence is making it more difficult to keep the land dry, and it is increasing the risk of flooding. The Dutch are now having to pump water into some areas to prevent the land from sinking too much, a paradoxical solution that highlights the complexity of the problem. The third challenge is the increasing frequency of extreme weather events. The climate is becoming more volatile, and the storms are becoming more intense. The Dutch have built their defenses to withstand a 1 in 10,000 year storm, but they are now facing the possibility of storms that are even more extreme. The cost of upgrading the defenses is immense, and it is not clear whether the Dutch can afford to build a system that is capable of withstanding the worst-case scenarios. The pivot point has arrived. The Netherlands can either continue to invest in its traditional defenses, building higher dikes and stronger barriers, or it can embrace a new paradigm of adaptation, of learning to live with water rather than fighting it. The first path is the path of certainty, the path that has worked for centuries. The second path is a path of uncertainty, but it is also the path of innovation. The Dutch are beginning to explore both paths, investing in both traditional and innovative solutions. But the clock is ticking and the sea is rising. The future of the Netherlands and the sea is a future of uncertainty, a future that is shaped by the choices that we make today. Two paths lie ahead, two completely different destinies. In the first path, the Dutch successfully adapt to the rising seas, strengthening their defenses, embracing innovation, and building a resilient society that can withstand the challenges of the 21st century. The Netherlands remains a vibrant and prosperous nation, a beacon of hope for a world that is struggling to adapt to climate change. In the second path, the Dutch failed to adapt, overwhelmed by the rising seas and the increasing frequency of extreme weather events. The dikes are breached, the polders are flooded, and the country is torn apart by the forces of nature. The Netherlands becomes a cautionary tale, a warning of what happens when a nation is unable to adapt to a changing climate. The question is not whether the Netherlands will sink into the sea. The question is whether it will be able to adapt in time. The map never lies, but the people draw it always have a reason. We just saw why the Netherlands didn't sink into the sea. But there is one nation quietly building an alternative to the Dutch model. That is the next journey. Which future do you believe? Comment Future 1 or Future 2, and subscribe to Atlas Beyond so you never miss the next journey.